Hello there, welcome to another episode of World of Warships with Ingani Titan. Yes, I've been playing away with World of Warships since, I suppose, the last World of Warships video I did. Not playing with it as often as I'm playing with other stuff. I think Civilization 6 and World of Tanks probably take up the primary positions on my gaming time, and then it's probably for Triumph and Valkyria Chronicles. World of Warships coming in somewhere behind, or probably maybe ahead of the Valkyria Chronicles. It's just that when I go at the Valkyria Chronicles, it's a big long session. So mostly I've been playing co-op battles, but recently, since the weekend, I started playing random battles again. And in fact, apparently, at least I was listening to Mingles with Jingles today, and apparently Wargaming had a lot of server issues over the weekend, that World of Warships servers were offline quite a lot. They had a lot of problems, which turned out to be a hardware problem in their main server, in the EU server cluster. Now, I'm on the EU server cluster. I played for about two and a half hours on Saturday afternoon, and I didn't notice a thing, so I must have gotten lucky. So I started switching back to random battles again, and I've come to a conclusion about random battles and co-op battles and when to play with what. And one of the conclusions is that I'm going to play random battles only tier 3 and higher. Played in the St. Louis a few games, and I've had pretty decent games, and I've had a lot of fun. And the thing about random battles with the St. Louis is that I've had pretty good, I won't say good matchmaking, because I've no idea what good or bad matchmaking really means. I've no strong views on matchmaking at this point in time. But I've had full teams. I'm not sure what the maximum number of players on the team is, but certainly teams with this kind of population, these number of players per team. Whereas a tier 2 and a tier 1, quite frequently you can have games as low as 2 players aside. And I think they're not much fun at all, even 4 players aside. 6 players isn't a whole lot of fun, because what happens is they tend to spawn, sometimes they spawn unevenly, so you might have 3 destroyers and a cruiser on one side of the map, and the other side might have 3 cruisers or something like that, 6 players, and you might run into the enemy force with a destroyer and 2 cruisers or something like that, or a fast cruiser that has crossed over to the other side. So it can be a bit unbalanced, and if you're not a good player, you know how to handle it, which is frequently what I discovered anyway, in my experience. When you have larger numbers of players like we have now, there's a battleship out there as well as the destroyer beside me. Well, frequently the other player, the battleship, gets the attention of the enemy guns, and it's one of the reasons I tend to have a kind of a buddy player, or at least when I'm going to a particular area, I'll try and make sure that there's at least, ideally, a battleship or a couple of other cruisers, and I tend to start off with a cruiser at half speed. Now, I have bought the Samson, the American Tier 2 destroyer. I haven't played it in random battles. Don't think that I will, and I'm not terribly gone on destroyer play. First of all, it's really easy to sink your allies. The enemy ships can waltz through your torpedo spreads like a prima ballerina, or like that woman in the recent viral video with the perfect 10 floor gymnastics floor performance that was knocking around on Facebook recently. And that kind of grace and elegance, they just bop around and torpedoes don't go anywhere near them. You can launch torpedoes at maximum range on an enemy cruiser, and one of your cruisers is going to reverse course to sail into the path of the torpedoes. I swear they do it deliberately. So I just got my first turning pink as a result of having the Samsung, and then the 4 or 5 matches where I was penalised for friendly fire, I then turned around in the first match that I was clear and did it again. That said, in some respects, destroyer play is probably a bit superficially. It's probably a bit easier to play it than cruisers. It's actually, I think, superficially easier to survive. To be effective is a different thing entirely, but it's certainly easier to survive. Your ships are much more survivable. You can get in, you can spot the enemies, you can be spotted. You are bloody hard to hit. You've got options like smoke, engine boosts. You can accelerate and decelerate really, really quickly, unlike the cruisers, or at least unlike the cruisers I've been playing so far. Now, I didn't intend to ground myself on the island here, and I kind of spotted what was happening before I just rammed into the island, so I managed to have the speed almost completely killed by the time I hit the island. I was able to back out reasonably quickly. Grounding yourself on the map border is a lot worse. I've done that with a destroyer, and it can be really hard to pull yourself out of it at times. As can grounding yourself sideways on an island, where you actually have almost completed the turn, and you almost didn't hit the island. You just nudged it, but it's along the length of the ship. And then trying to extricate yourself from that is actually a real pain. Now, fortunately, it's only happened to me with a destroyer, so I was able to put up a smoke screen. And using torpedoes, it doesn't give away your position the same way using the guns do, so I was able to use torpedoes to kill enemy ships that got too nosy about my smoke screen. So as I was saying, once you think your gunnery is reasonable in terms of hitting ships, and I think in this game my gunnery was pretty reasonable in terms of hitting ships, my judgment on the other hand left a lot to be desired. There's quite a few instances from here on out where I was using high explosives, and I think I should probably have been using armor piercing. Now I have no real idea of the characteristics of the different kinds of armor piercing and what exactly is the most optimal, and what ship angles are impossible to penetrate with high explosives or whatever. The second big mistake is that I hung around this part of the map too long. The battleship that I came over with is sunk. There are 2 destroyers in the area, but they're not as good a support as the battleship would have been. They are far enough away probably that they might be out of spot range for the enemy ships, so they're not going to shoot at them, they're going to spot me instead. But they're also, like that guy's firing torpedoes, the friendly ship. He is almost certainly too far away to be firing torpedoes. That torpedoes might not even reach the enemy ships before they run out of steam and just stop. My problem right now is there's 3 enemy ships over there. Now I attempted to fire over the headland to hit that battleship that I was shooting at earlier on. There's 2 battleships and a cruiser. But I don't think I was hitting anything. I didn't have a good estimate as to how far out the battleship was. Now, I misjudged that shot on the cruiser. I didn't realise it was a cruiser, I think, and I just wasn't given enough lead for a cruiser. Some of the cruisers are quite fast, and you need to give them almost as much lead as you would give a destroyer, especially when they're going flat out in a straight line. They lose a lot of speed in the turns. Now I'm starting to take fire from the battleship as well, so I need to do something about that also. And I probably should have been using armor piercing at this point, firing at the cruiser, because I would have been much more likely to get a better chance of getting a citadel hit, and firing high explosives was just that little bit, I think, less effective. There is also at this point the consideration that an enemy battleship has just been spotted on the other side of the island in the direction I'm going, and I'm now in danger of being caught between 2 sets of enemy ships. In hindsight, what I think I should have done at this point in time was take a hard turn to port, that is to my left, as I was moving, and slip around the edge of that island south of me, so as to keep as much of the island to the north of me between me and the battleship that's coming into sort of on the western side of this island to the north of me. Instead, I come to a stop because I was aware of the other battleships, so I came to a stop with the idea of reversing back out and just using the corner here as cover. But I overestimated the amount of utility or help that destroyers and the one beside me and the one there at the edge of my view range that is behind the smoke screen and firing torpedoes. But he, again, judging from my own experience with the Samsung, the torpedo ranges are great, and he's probably well outside the effective torpedo range. Actually, we can watch them here and see if they make it. And Well, they're well behind the enemy. Was a Charleston and the enemy battleship. That salvo I sent out, though, the next couple behind it should, in my opinion, have been armor-piercing salvos, because I got a good few hits, and one Citadel at this point would have really wrecked that cruiser's day. He would have been in real trouble, and a couple of other hits then might have just finished him off quite easily. Therefore, it was a big mistake on my part to use high explosives under those circumstances. I was better off, I think, using armor-piercing rounds. And my situation is progressively getting worse. The battleship to the north of me is closing on my position. The cruiser has foundered, and now is the time that I should have attempted to make my escape. Instead, again, I went for reverse back out to engage the other ships coming around the headland, and I think that turns out to be a fatal mistake on my part. I mean, I get to do some more damage, but not a whole lot, all things considered. Here's the battleship coming in, and he's operating at a very close range, and his guns are pointing in this direction because he's probably come gunning for me, and he's just taking opportunity shots at the destroyer there when he saw him beside me. He saw him first. Now I'm using high explosive. Probably no harm, but I won't have a lot of guns to bring it to bear because I'm going to have to keep the back of my ship pointed at this guy. Now, I still probably had a chance, but I was pointing the wrong way, and I didn't start turning quickly enough. I should have been turning instantly. I know I would have had to risk a broadside for a shot or two against the Belfarian behind me, but I think turning and again heading for the island to my south and trying to make around that headland that you see just south of my position would have been probably the optimal strategy this now. As it was, I left to turn too late, so now I'm starting to be exposed to the guns of both ships, and also because I left to turn too late, I'm going to run aground on the other island to the west of me. Now, I don't run aground too badly, but I am running around between two battleships, so effectively my fate is sealed. The other battleship's already in a secondary gun range, and that said, I think I was right to keep firing at the same guy. I don't think it would have made much difference one way or the other, but there was always a chance that I might set a fire or hit a magazine or something critical and take him out of the game, whereas if I started switching fire, I'd have had to wait 30 to 40 seconds while the ship's guns realign themselves. We did a nasty explosion there, but seems to have been put out. Another use damage control, and I'm gone. Possibly taken out by secondary guns. Two enemy ships now are cruising into the narrow waters, and that's probably going to be their undoing, because I think that cruiser crossing, or my allied cruiser, actually was able to launch those torpedoes. And both enemy ships are turning now. I think the nearest battleship is still turning, so he's going to get hit. He's going to eat torpedo one way or the other. The other guy stopped turning. I think he started turning back into the torpedoes. He spotted them a little bit earlier, and he's managed to preserve his ship, whereas the other ship's gone. But he is on fire between two enemy ships, between two allied fleets of mine, and he's on fire again. So I think he's used his damage control, so he's going to start taking hits now constantly. So I'm not going to switch user perspective to a different ship. I think that enemy ship driving away from me there is pretty much doomed. He's constantly losing hit points at a steady rate from the fires burning on him, and he's possibly taking some steady damage as well from torpedo strikes. And that's it, he's down, and that's enough to tip us over the edge and win us the game. So, like I said, I think this is one of my better games. I got pretty good credits. 45,000 damage, 90 targeting hits, which I think is very good. I don't think I've received 90 hit ribbons in any other version of World of Warships. I have one more spare slot in the port, so I could buy one more ship. So I'll probably think about buying the Tier 3 American battleship and see where that gets me in the game. Most of my damage there was done to a single ship, the Belarofian, is that how I pronounce it? 31k damage, which I don't know if it's the entire, it must be a good chunk of the hit points of that ship. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and a thumbs up. If you have not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. I will catch you all again soon. Bye for now.